Hello, hello, video request. So this one's another one from Gypsy Hustled. So let's zoom in and see what they have to say here. So, can you see that? Gypsy Hustled, I know you have talked about healthcare previously. I was wondering if you could talk more specifically about the Obamacare debate by the media and your own personal experience with government-run healthcare during travel. I grew up in the UK where the government provided me with free care, and it's great. In the American media, they mostly bash Obamacare, yet they lack any alternatives other than to get government out of the way. The problem as I see it is it's shareholder profit incentives within the private insurers which denies pre-existing condition clients. Think maximizing cash inflows and minimizing outflows. Doctors that perform unnecessary procedures for profit, plus fears of lawsuits, to name a couple. It seems obvious to me that Obamacare isn't perfect because there still exists the profit incentive that keeps raising prices, maximizing profits to the benefit of corporations. Getting rid of Obamacare would still not fix the problem of rising costs because profit incentives still exist. The solution would be to have government replace the private insurer to keep costs in check. If costs of government healthcare got too high, we could just vote out the people in charge and put new people in. All the world data proves government healthcare is more conservative than what America has. Can you talk why in America it's taboo to suggest government-run healthcare? Fears of communism? Why do Americans entrust the government with Medicare, 65-plus-year-olds, on public education and public education, yet don't trust the government with providing health for everyone else? If Medicare and Social Security were communist and really evil, then why don't the Republicans run on getting rid of these today? Don't American conservatives know government care is more conservative? Also, I believe the American system makes people less enterprising by encouraging them to stay at jobs they dislike in order to keep their insurance. Thanks. Okie dokie. So, I watched a video about Obamacare that explained it really well. Somebody who liked Obamacare. And I wanted to actually read the Affordable Care Act, the text of it, but my piece of shit computer with Natural Reader just crashes every time, no matter how small the text is. It just can't convert. So I'll see. It's one of those things that this computer just won't do. So I'll see if the other computer can do it. See if I can install Natural Reader on the other computer, because I can't read right off the internet with this computer. I never figured out how to do it. So, but anyways, even if I did, it's 43 hours of constant reading just to get through the Affordable Care Act. It's gigantic. Which I would do anyways if I could, if my computer would allow me to. I'll see if I can. Maybe I'll just go ahead and reinstall the operating system on this fucking thing. Because I could just put it to four times faster, then it would speed read it to me, and I'd be done in 10 hours. So you could get through it in one day, and you would remember the important stuff. But anyways, this guy did a pretty good job of breaking it down. I watched a couple people talk about it. As far as what I know about Obamacare is, it's the reform of our healthcare system, which we really need to reform because healthcare costs has been rising for the last 100 years or something. People have been trying, presidents and stuff have been trying to reform healthcare for the last 100 years, and finally Obama's doing it. I remember Hillary Clinton wanted to do it back in '92, but people gave her grief for it. It was 5.2% of the GDP, the healthcare industry, in 1960, when we had, you know, the lowest wealth discrepancy and the most, you know, the minimum wage was the highest compared to the GDP, the production, but it was 17.9% in 2011, and if we don't do anything by 2019, it'll be 20%. It'll be over 20%, and it just keeps rising and rising and rising. And one reason it rises is because there's just, it's really complicated industry, and there's just not enough incentive for people to deal with healthcare efficiently. You know, like it's kind of like the government contracting out Halliburton with these cost no object agreements. You know, these blank checks. They would just they'd let the doctors and hospitals kind of pay them a certain fixed fee for a certain service, and so they would just be given the services all the time that when they don't need to be giving them, because they get money for it every time. And so one of the things that's written in Obamacare is they give them like a certain amount of money each year to spend on whatever, on certain treatments. And so it's more, they have it designed more towards curing the people more than just spending money and making money. They only would give tests to people who need them, and they would only give treatments to people who need them. And so it cuts out all of the extra superfluous services and even, you know, expenses, how much they can charge. I think one reason a lot of people are against it is because people make money off of that. You know, if we have the 5.2% of our budget, which is like 20%, right? I'm sorry, that's 1/20th. But we spend $2.6 trillion a year on healthcare, which is 1/6 of our budget, which is kind of almost as much as we spend on defense. Somebody's making money off of that, and so those people are not liking it. You know, you got to follow the money. If a lot of people are going to be making a lot less, then you know there's going to be some people who aren't going to like it, and they're going to have all kinds of fancy ways to have problems with it. Another problem with with the way that our healthcare is now, which makes it really confusing and for everybody, and costs too much, because confusion ends up costing much more money too, because of all the extra paperwork and administration. That costs a lot of money. So a lot of Obamacare is to try to streamline how we spend the money. There's tens of millions of Americans who are completely uninsured. Only the rich people are insured because they can afford health insurance, and then the very poorest people because they've got the Medicaid. But all these people in the middle don't have anything, and so but when they can't afford stuff, they would always get bailed out anyway. And the poor people would even have operations, like my roommate's homeless friend had a leg operation, and which makes other people pay for it, makes everybody else pay for it in a really convoluted, confusing way. So it's just to try to make everybody insured, so everybody pays into it, so that it's more fair. A lot of people like to complain that it's making people's insurance go up, but that's for like a very small number of people, and just the people who kind of fall through the cracks. But overall, for the whole country, it's a lot better, and people don't have to switch their insurance policies if they don't want to, anyways. So just some other facts some figures that I saw interesting from the video that I'll include in my comment section is we spend 30% more in the percentage of our GDP than the second than the next developed country. So, and all those other developed countries have socialized healthcare, so it's already proven that having a national healthcare is a lot more, they spend a lot more percentage of their GDP on it. And yeah, just to show examples of how this healthcare cost is getting out of control is between 99 and 2010. Our GDP went down, but the cost of premiums for the insurance doubled, more than doubled. Small businesses have 3 to 4 times more cost of premiums than the big businesses. So Obamacare is designed to actually help smaller businesses, and have it more, also set it up so that people can have a national health care, so it's not connected to their job, you know, so they don't get a job with some big business which gets a special deal on the health care, but they have a menial job that they're not paid much, but they still don't want to leave their job because they don't have any other way to get health care, so they stay there and they can't do what they're actually trained to do, and it stagnates the economy. So we can save, if we implement Obamacare, there's all these different economic institutions that did all these different tests and studies and stuff, and they figured out that we can save 5% of our GDP, and just by implementing Obamacare, and so it would pay for itself within 2 years. You know, so people, I think one reason people don't like it is because now they're like, people who are uninsured, now they have to get insured and pay extra, so they feel like now they're paying money where they weren't paying before, so now they're poor and because of Obamacare. But overall, it helps the whole country, so you know all of your other taxes are going to go down, and it would pay for itself in 2 years. So if you reduce the healthcare cost by 1.5%, the GDP goes up by 2% by 2020 and 8% by 2030. So expanding healthcare coverage to uninsured would help the net economy well-being by $100 billion a year, which increases the net income of the average family by $2,600 a year by 2020, and you make $10,000 a year more by 2030, just by expanding it to the uninsured. It'll also help with infant mortality. The United States doesn't fare very well in infant mortality. It's like 38 or something, you know. Not something you would expect for America, and that would save us $65 billion a year, just with that. And also sick days. People take a lot of sick days under the way it is now, and it would, by reducing that, it would save us $2 trillion a year by 2030. And the general health improvements will save us $180 billion a year. Because 47% of our healthcare right now is already paid for by the government. So those are just some of the stats that he did. I gave up on listening to more of it and figured I'd go ahead and do the video. So let's just answer some of the specific questions he has. So if I could talk specifically about what is debated by the media. Well, I don't really watch it much, but yeah, I hear people saying that it'll, destroy America and all this stuff. I don't even believe what those kinds of people say anyways. Like, I have so much distrust in them that they've been busted so many, people like on the Fox News and stuff, and busted so many times just bold-faced lying about stuff that they're just saying this to appease the people who they work for. And you know, like the whole thing about the website not working. Well, the websites are state run. So if your website doesn't work, it's because your state, you know, is kind of trying to sabotage the whole thing. The website of Colorado works fine because we're not trying to sabotage it. And it hasn't really implemented anyways. I think there's a January 15th due date. If you're not signed up for it by January 15th, you're going to start getting the fines. I have a meeting at the People's Clinic at 4 o'clock next Friday on the 6th, so I just squeak right in time. But I already qualified for Medicare, because Medicare is what is kind of the national health care that they would give for the poor people. But with Obamacare, they actually they brought it up to a higher, you know, income level to include more people. I think I would have applied, qualified for it anyways. But my own personal experience with government-run healthcare during travel, yeah, I mean, even second and third world countries have national healthcare. You know, you can just go in. And I was in Malaysia, and I got sick, couldn't breathe, and I went into the hospital, and they just gave me for free a couple of inhalers. I went to the hospital twice for that in Malaysia. And then when I was in Indonesia, I got really sick in Surabaya with asthma from all the pollution in those cities, and I went and had a doctor's visit, and they gave me pills and inhalers, and I didn't have to pay anything. When I was in Argentina, I got really sick from asthma, and I was in the hospital like 6 days, and they did all these blood tests and stuff, and they didn't charge me anything. So I didn't even have to be a citizen of a country. In America, I crashed my bike like 4 years ago and got a gash in my leg, and it didn't stop bleeding, so I went into the emergency room, which I shouldn't have done. I should have just plugged it up myself, but I got like 7 stitches. It took the doctor like, you know, 2 minutes or 5 minutes or something to stitch up, and I had to wait like an hour for him to show up, and the bill was $2,600. And I told them I wasn't insured, so they knocked it down to like $585 that I had to pay. So, see, if we have a national healthcare system, there's more government oversight, and there's more regulation, and this is the kind of thing we need a lot of regulation for. Because a lot of the costs is just them overcharging because it's all too privatized. I guess these hospitals are owned by big businesses with the lobbyists and all that kind of stuff, and so it's just to rein it in. And you know, obviously there's going to be people making less money, so then they're going to fight over it. Yeah, so yeah, you grew up where it's free healthcare, and it is great because when you get sick, you're not afraid to go to the doctor, you know, and it's healthier for you. See, that's why all the people uninsured now, they get sick, they don't go to the doctor, and then they end up developing more serious stuff, and which ends up costing them more, and people are saddled with these huge debts that they're now, you know, in debt for the rest of their life and spending all their money to some system that is unfair and pays too much to some doctors and insurance companies and hospital people. You know, like insurance companies, they're always screwing people over. They don't have they won't give you insurance. You pay a little bit and you don't get shit. And under Obamacare, they've got laws that, you know, they can't turn you away. One of the laws is they're going to increase kids' coverage to 25. I mean, when I wasn't covered in my mom's coverage until I was 23, and so now they're going to bring it up to 25, and insure more people so that less people are uninsured. And there's less people getting stuck with all these personal problems, which end up causing, making them take more sick days because they don't actually get well ever, which costs the government, you know, $1 trillion a year, or GDP $1 trillion a year. So, in the American media, they mostly bash Obamacare, yet they lack alternatives other than the government to get government out of the way. Yeah, it's weird. It's a way for the Republicans to try to make the Democrats look bad. And when you say, oh, but we need a national healthcare system, they're like, oh, but we have one. But, like Romney, I guess, had Massachusetts Care, which was, I guess, the prototype for Obamacare. And he said he would have implemented anyway, but he wasn't arguing for the point as much as Obama was. And so it's just that they've turned it into this big political battle. And, if the Republicans were going to put Obamacare in, they should have done it. You'd think they would have done it under Bush, but he was spending too much money invading all those different countries. So, okay, so, yeah, you need to have an alternative. You hear Ted Cruz out there like, Obamacare is so bad, it's going to cost jobs, all this stuff, but he doesn't actually give an alternative, when it's getting out of control, the costs. It's just spiking. There's some examples of how Obamacare is going to make everything more efficient. There's just more regulations. You have to digitize all of the people's records and nationalize their records, so you can move around from job to job, and your whole data sheet goes with you. So there's less confusion and paperwork and stuff. Anyways, the guy in that video gave all the examples. The problem as I see it is shareholder profit incentives within private insurers, which denies pre-existing conditioned clients. Yeah, they in Obamacare, they can't turn away preconditioned existing clients, which makes sense, because the idea is to make people well, not to not fix them because you're going to lose money on it. It's when everybody pays into it and it's all nationalized, then everybody kind of helps everybody else out. There's not as many people who are left out of the loop, holding the live grenade. Which denies pre-existing condition clients, like maximizing inflow and minimizing outflows. Yeah, see, if you have it all private, it's all about making people money, and then normal people get screwed over. Healthcare shouldn't be about certain people making tons of money just to make money, For example, the provision where they said they weren't going to, what was I going to say? They have it designed so that people have an incentive to actually get the person better. And they don't just pay them just for the service. There's more oversight. The doctor can't go, oh, I'll make so and so money if I do the X-ray, even though he doesn't need it. That kind of stuff. That's where a lot of the cost comes in. So doctors that perform unnecessary procedures for profit, plus fears of lawsuits, to name a couple. It seems obvious to me that Obamacare isn't perfect because there still exists the profit incentive that keeps raising prices to the benefit of corporations. See, that's the point. We're completely revamping it. It's the biggest revamp of the healthcare system ever. And so it's people have to realize that the first version are going to have some kinks to it, and not everybody's going to get the instantaneous fix where it's all better for everybody instantaneously. We all have to have faith and just move forward and actually let it take hold and stop. See, it's kind of obvious when you got people like Ted Cruz and all these people talking trash about it, as though they know exactly what's going to happen, when it hasn't even started yet. It's all propaganda. They don't care. They don't care what the actual science is behind it. They just want to push their agenda so that it doesn't go through, so that their people who they work for keep making money off of not helping people. So you gotta wait. It's like, chill out, man. Let it kick in. Getting rid of Obamacare would still not fix the problem of rising costs because profit incentives still exist. The solution would be to have government replace the private insurer to keep costs in check. I think that's what Obama is designed to do, is for government to replace the private insurer, but in a steady way. They have it like by 2019 you'd have to be out of your private insurers and stuff like that. One thing that I think is really bizarre is you have all of these insurance companies with spending tons of money on ads, like Geico. Geico ads are everywhere. And then you have what's that other insurance company with the girl with the black hair, the spokesperson, and that insurance company totally screwed somebody over. I saw like a year ago. I saw a Young Turks piece. It was some famous actor. His sister died in an automobile accident, and they refused to pay her any like life insurance or anything like that. And instead of spending all this money on, it's kind of like spending way too much money on political campaigns. We spent I think it was more than $300 billion, like $350 billion in the last presidential campaign on all the advertisements. And that's just spending money to spend money to create jobs that don't actually do anything. Advertisements don't actually help anybody do anything. It's actually a pain in the ass to watch those advertisements. Let that those advertisements, all that ad space and money be spent on other stuff that should be more competitive, and not something that everybody needs. And so that's just kind of one of the costs. The insurance companies spend all that money on their advertising, and then of course they have to pass that cost off to the people they insure. If it's all government and it's all laid out by law, the letter of the law, and what's fair for everybody, there's no advertisement, and there's a huge cost out of it right there. You want to have government replaced to keep the costs in check. If costs of government health care got too high, we could just vote out the people in charge and put new people in. Yeah, it's more democratic when the government is in control. And you want it to be democratic. You want the people to be in charge, not all the rich people who don't have any, who can make their own rules, and then they can not be transparent about it. When it's all government related, it's more transparent. You have a government website with all the information, all the world data proves government health care is more conservative than what America has. Yeah. We spend 30% more of our GDP than the other developed nations who have nationalized health care. Can you talk about why America, it's taboo to suggest government-run health care? Fears of communism? Yeah, fears of communism. We saw that America did so much better than Russia, and Russia's communist, and we did better than China, and China's communist, that the people in charge, the powerful rich people, use that as a reason to make everybody freaked out that some kind of socialized healthcare would turn us into Russia or China, when it's these countries that actually right now are having a better per capita income and quality of life than us. These Western European countries and Canada and stuff. That's who we should be looking at, but they don't. They just conveniently look at them. We got way carried away with communism. Like, if we're afraid of communism in the 50s with McCarthy. Just totally unreasonable. Just finding a boogeyman, You always got to have the boogeyman. Why do Americans entrust the government with Medicare, with, taking care of the 65-plus-year-olds, and public education, yet don't trust the government with providing health care for everyone else? Let's continue. If Medicare and Social Security were communism and really evil, then why don't the Republicans run on getting rid of those today? Yeah. Don't American conservatives know government care is more conservative? Also, I believe the American system makes people less enterprising by encouraging them to stay with their jobs. Yeah. They dislike in order to keep their insurance. Yeah, that's one main reason. One main thing about Obamacare. Yeah, it's weird, that whole thing about conservatives. They want to be fiscally conservative, so that there's not freeloaders in the world, and so they don't want to have the national health care, so all the freeloaders get all the free health care. When you have all these people spending money on stuff that they don't need, providing services just to make money off of it, and also to have less regulation with big businesses, it actually does the opposite. It creates this elite class of people who make so much money they can be freeloaders themselves. They work really easy jobs and make millions of dollars a year, and then nobody in their family ever has to work, and then they're the freeloaders on society. But they get these ignorant people to think that they're on their side, and that the people who believe that everybody should be taken care of like them are the bad guy. And I think it's one thing is it's, you know, they're stupid people, and stupid people are easy to lie to and use really simple propaganda and just brainwash them, and they just believe them, you know, like making all the Germans think that the Jews are bad guys because just by showing a video of rats running around and saying that Jews are rats, you know, or people making people go against Obamacare from those Koch brother funded ads, where you have Uncle Sam looking all crazy, like poking his head up through the woman's legs spread out in the stirrups, and oh, it's going to be like that, oh yeah, of course, and they just believe it. I think another reason maybe is causes, you know, really ignorant, stupid, poor people. They always have that person in their family who's the freeloader, because they come from screwed up families, and they kind of, so they're really afraid of the freeloader, and they think that they're really fear-based, so they think that there's always these freeloaders out there, and so when somebody says, no freeloading, no, give money just to the people, you know, even if it's for healthcare, you know, like somebody's deliberately going to get sick and go, on purpose, go to the doctor just so that they can cost the government more money in their healthcare. People aren't like that, you know, when in fact it's the opposite. People would, you know, doctors and hospitals would do unnecessary procedures because it makes them money. It's easier to do it like that rather than somebody pretend that they're sick just to go in to get attention, you know. It's ridiculous. So maybe that's another reason, you know. Stupid people are easy to manipulate, so you can just give them really simple propaganda and they believe it. And that's how that little you know, hypocrisy can happen. Yeah, so anyways, that's what I think about Obamacare and the media and the debate. If I can figure out how to get my computer to make an MP3 file of the healthcare bill, maybe I'll study up on it more and I'll actually do a video explaining what it does. But the main idea of it is to insure everybody so that millions of people aren't insured. And then, you know, make everybody pay into it so that we have, you don't have only the people who are insured pay into it and then they get screwed over. And then to make it nationalized so that people can, it's connected to the government, it's not connected to their company, so they can move around companies easier. You know, that's the idea of you know, especially with a big country. You want to make if you want a healthy economy, you want people to be allowed to move around, you know, from one state to the next, one job to the next, cut the bureaucracy out and make it easier. You know, like, it's kind of related to serfdom, you know. In serfdom, in ancient Europe, people weren't allowed to move from one farm to the other. They were tied legally to their land. They had to stay there. And so it's kind of similar, you know, if you have a crappy job, but they have it's with some big ass company that has all the control with the good health care, then they just stay with the job and they can't move around because they're afraid to not have health care. If you can move around because the government takes care of your health care, then you're less of a serf. And then people have more control to move from state to state and place to place, so then the states have more control over their own laws, because people you know who identify with one state's laws more, you know, like if you're a stoner, you can move to Colorado, and then you could show everybody's moving to Colorado, and they go, it's because weed's legal, so the other states would want to legalize weed, you know. It makes it more, it brings more states' rights, so, you know, it's more conservative. It's more, you know, more conservative, fiscally conservative, as more, you know, more streamlined, you know, and freer for everybody. Okay. So anyways, yeah, that's enough for that. Whew. Peace out. How long was that? Oh, 30.